So I've come out early this morning. It's about 7:15 in the morning at the moment, and as you can see I'm walking through this lovely woodland and I'm off to explore this area. I'm quite looking forward to today. It's very cold. The temperature's about -1 at the moment, and that's quite unusual because we've been going through quite a mild spell, but the temperature's really dropped today, and as a result of this there's been some lovely mist hanging around. It's clearing a little bit in this particular area at the moment, but I'm quite hopeful that it will hang around in areas, but I think as the day goes on it's going to gradually lift. But that said, there is no wind. It's a fantastic day for doing some landscape photography and I'm really looking forward to it. So I absolutely love these conditions. They are magical. Conditions such as this are one of the major reasons why I love landscape photography so much. And I'm set up for my first shot. And it's quite an interesting one. I'm not sure how it's going to turn out yet. It could turn out one of two ways and I'm going to really like it either way. But I've got my shot framed in portrait orientation and I was drawn to these two quite delicate trees. I believe they're silver birch, so we've got one framing the right hand side of my frame and another off in the distance framing the left. The one on the right has got some nice gorse around its base and there's some new trees growing around it as well, and the heather's got this lovely covering of frost, so it's a really nice magical scene. Off in the distance you see the frost going off in the distance over the heather, then we come to some more trees and then they gradually fade out into the mist. And the shot is magical at the moment. I really like it. However, when I was setting up, I noticed as the mist clears, there is a mountain in the distance. And to be honest, I'm not really sure without the mountain becoming visible again. At the moment it's obscured by the mist. I'm not really sure if I prefer the shot with the mountain visible or without. But I'm going to hang around here for a while longer. Hopefully the mist will clear at least a little bit, just for a few seconds literally, so I can capture the image with the mountain in the distance. But if I don't, I'm still really pleased with the shot as is. I think it captures the feeling of the day quite nicely. So I got up pretty much in the middle of the night to come here today, a very long drive in the dark, and I've been waiting in this spot for over an hour now for the mist to slightly clear, and as you can see behind me it is certainly doing that, and my patience and efforts have been more than rewarded. I'm absolutely delighted with the image I've been able to capture. The mountain that I spoke about has slowly revealed itself, and you can also see hints of another mountain to the left with some snow on it, and little bits of snow on some mountains coming through to the right of this tree as well. And I think in photography we all like different types of images, we all like different types of landscape images, but for me I try to capture images that I personally like, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have been able to capture this image today. I actually feel quite privileged to be here just witnessing the mist clear. And even if I don't capture anything else today, I'm going to go home delighted. So I've moved on and found this rather nice scene behind me here, and as soon as I saw it, the way my eyes work, I thought it would suit a panoramic style image, so that's what I'm set up for. The mist has cleared a bit, you can see more of the mountains in the distance, but there's still some mist hanging around the trees, so it's got a slightly cool look to it and it's quite atmospheric. So regarding taking a panoramic image, I ensure the tripod itself is level. I do that using the spirit level in mind, which is located here. I then make sure the camera itself is level. And you do that just to ensure your image is nice and straight, nice and level as you pan across your scene. So I always work in manual mode. So I start at the left hand side of the image and work across, and I lock in my focus point so that doesn't change. In this particular case I'm focused on infinity and I'm at roughly 50 millimeters. The next thing to do is lock in your exposure. So I start at the left hand side of the scene, check my histogram, make sure it's okay, and just do a test run panning across the scene without taking any images to ensure that there's no major changes in exposure, and it's pretty consistent all the way across this scene. So as I do my test run as well, I'm checking the spirit level on my camera to ensure the camera is staying nice and level across the whole scene. You don't want the camera to be going down or up at an angle as you pan across the scene. And then once everything's set up the way I want, I start at the left, move across to the right, take each frame using a shutter release cable or a remote shutter to ensure there's no shake in any of my shots. And that's it really. It takes a little bit of time, but it's quite simple. And I think that format of image, the panorama, will really suit this scene behind me. As I moved on, the mist began to clear, the frost started to lift, and the light became, unfortunately, a bit flat. From a photography viewpoint, it was clear my opportunity to get good images had passed, but I still felt there would be images worth taking. Images that would tell a story of this area. So this is the next scene that I've captured today, and I've captured it for two reasons really. The first is that I really like it as a landscape image. We've got this rather large old Scots pine tree over to the left of the frame, and just under some of the branches to the left side of the tree I've carefully positioned a mountain which is miles off in the distance. You can just make it out, it's quite small. Over to the right of the frame and much larger are these nice mountains. The mist has been rolling over them. There's been some quite atmospheric sky as well. And then finally at the right of the frame I've positioned this young tree. In terms of settings for this particular image, I've taken two exposures. One correctly exposed for the foreground and the trees, and the second exposure correctly exposed for the sky. The reason I've not used an ND grad in this particular scene is because the tree and some of the other trees themselves are quite dark, and the lay of the land is quite uneven, so an ND grad just doesn't really work in this particular location. It would darken the tree too much for my liking and some of the other surroundings as well. So that's the photography side of this image, but it also means something to me personally. I always talk about when we're out doing landscape photography just to be careful and mindful of our surroundings and not damage anything. I always like to leave a landscape without leaving any mark. That's the way I try and work. And I would never take an image if it was going to mean something was going to be damaged. So the particular reason I really like this scene is that to me it really represents Scotland. This is how I picture Scotland in my head, but also in terms of this rather old tree here which is still going strong, but I'm really pleased to see lots of young trees growing all around it. And that's why I've included this one specifically quite prominent in my frame, but there's also other ones scattered around which I'm being very careful to avoid as I navigate. So it's quite an uplifting scene really to see such old trees, but also a lot of new ones growing as well, and just to see that the landscape here is doing really well. So I've just captured my final image for today and I'm quite pleased with it. It's a nice way to finish off the day. I've captured the image for the same reasons as my previous image. One, I really like it as a landscape image in general, but two, for the message it gives. We've got some of the older trees, but also at the front of the image and deliberately out of focus is a new growth, a new small tree. So it just gives that message of hope that there's new growth, and also just shows that the area is in good shape. There's lots of new trees growing. At the back of the image there's a really nice mountain, and I've just included a slender strip of sky at the top of the image, but I really like it. I think the trees really stand out and I really like their shape. But I've enjoyed my time today. If you're new to landscape photography and watching, hopefully you've picked up a few tips, and if you're experienced at landscape photography, hopefully you've just enjoyed watching. But thanks so much for your time, and I'll see you in my next video.